an ambitious and thorough review and overhaul of the way the government delivers services is absolutely necessary. It's underway without much media attention. There was a lot of behind-the-scenes work here. Key legislators in this room were involved. Senator Bonoff, Representative Winkler, Representative Simons, Senator Hahn has been involved, and I celebrate Representative Zellers for the sunset legislation. But we've got something going here, and there's a lot of action behind the scenes, specific legislation that passed for service innovation. Governor Polini vetoed the one we favored most that creates a muscular new council. But there's a lot of groups. Watch for the Bush Foundation. Get involved if you can. The Bush Foundation is going to make a major statement on this soon and become a leader in it. The list of big ticket redesign items is long. It's impressive. We've done some work on this at Growth and Justice. We have a Governing with Accountability report that points out where we need to redesign. And there's a really cool piece of work done here by the Citizens League through the foundations called Minnesota's Bottom Line, with some really earth-shaking ideas for redesigning government. The answers are going to gore oxes everywhere. It includes tax overhauls that end tax breaks for people as sacred as homeowners, but it includes wholesale renovation and diminution of pension benefits, historic collapsing of governmental units, greater reducing a prison population that is overloaded with people whose main crime is chemical dependency, human service overhauls, and most of all, total redesign of K-12 and higher ed systems. So hope is, I call myself as a newspaper reporter a cheerful cynic, but now that I'm out of the news business and I don't have to do what Tom does, I'm not in the business of scare tactics and gloom and doom anymore. I think we've got answers right here in this room, and there's progress. We can not only hope for progress, we can expect and demand it.
And we need to mark a milestone. First time Dana said something nice about anyone named Bush, which I thought was fair. Now, Blois, Dane framed this past decade as a miserable decade as we lurched from one crisis to another. As an expert in crisis communications, I'm sure you found this to be a very profitable decade.
The economy isn't all that bad in the crisis communication business. You can tell a clear difference here. Policy guys bring 3-ring binders. Politics guys bring note cards. I will keep this short. I actually think...
Is that an actual note card or the back of your dry cleaning receipt? I can't... I think that's what Pepin's got. Never mind.
I actually think that the conversation before illustrated the last decade and the last session. You notice legislators of both parties started out pretty optimistic, talking about the good things of the session. As we got further back in the room, the barbs started, and that's what the legislative session looks like. That's what the election looks like. We start out with a good tone, but we don't get there. But politically, this has led to a certain volatility that has continued to increase in Minnesota since 1990, and we've never seen it. People joke that, we all studied political science, but science and politics don't belong together when it comes to predicting elections. And I actually think that the real thing to watch is the normal people, none of which you all are, because you're spending your Friday morning at this panel. But the truth is that the normal people tuned out the legislative session. They've tuned out this election season so far. And the reason in Minnesota is because it's like a bad song that you hear over and over and over again. And this one's been topping the charts for going on 15 years here. And since we know the words and we know how it ends and we don't really like it, they just tune the station out. And that's why they care more about Jon Stewart than they do Katie Couric. And so it's just led to a different volatility. And I'll pass it to Greg.
Greg?
It's interesting. I think the one thing that, regardless of party, that all the legislators agreed on was that we are definitely in a fork in the road. And that hasn't always been the case at the legislature, believe it or not. After being a staffer there for a number of years and then witnessing it from outside the legislature, and I think I'll probably get agreement from Phil on this, we really need to have a discussion. I mean this seriously, folks, about whether we should go to an every other year session. Now, certainly there's need for doing what we did this year in terms of covering budget shortfalls or emergency legislation. But I am not, or I am convinced that we need to have a serious discussion about that and what that would mean for budgeting, what that would mean for long-term forecasting, what that would mean for our political campaigns, and what that would mean for business people in the room. So that's the takeaway that I get. Those are the two takeaways I get. We're at a fork in the road. Everybody knows it. We should talk about every other year legislative sessions.
Phil, the logical extension is here. We heard some legislators earlier talk about reducing the number of legislators. Greg wants to eliminate every other session. What's the logical next step? Eliminating state government? Trying to put one right in your wheelhouse here.
Close, but not quite. Tom, I think you remember all of those legislative sessions year after year after year where Jerry Bell would come forward to the legislature about the Twin Stadium funding. And I remember, I hope you have the same recollection, that Jerry Bell insisted year after year after year the Twins were not going to build a stadium in Minnesota without a roof. So there's your solution. Talk to Jerry Bell, ask him what happened. First, thank you for having us, and thank you for being here. At least you are concerned enough about what's going on in government and the activities of the legislative session to be here. So that's the first step to recovery. The second thing is, having spent a few years at the Marble Kingdom, thank the legislators who take the time to serve. It is a very grueling, difficult job. As you heard this morning, these are very difficult times. There is no easy solution to the budget situations and to all of the issues that confront legislators. And this year, I think, was particularly difficult. I think that coming up to the quote-unquote finish line, I think it was 3 days of nonstop around the clock. So these folks deserve a lot of credit for hanging in there and actually getting the job done. Now to the more partisan view of the political process. I think there's no question, having served again 16 years, most of the time governors end up getting what they want. Somehow 201 legislators don't equal one governor in the tug of war. That's certainly the observation over the years. Governor Pawlenty wanted a smaller bonding bill. The legislature passed a $1 billion bonding bill. The governor vetoed $300 million out of their bonding requests. Governor won. In the area of general assistance medical care, an issue that dragged out for many, many months in the debates and in the trying to find a resolution, legislature passes their fix, governor vetoes it, comes back and gets what he wants in terms of a solution to the general assistance medical care. The legislators complained vehemently about the governor's handling of the unallotments last year and how terrible and how horrible it was and how he had overstepped his authority. They support the decision to or file a brief in saying support of overturning the governor's unallotments. They win the case, but then turn around and 2 weeks later virtually rubber stamp the unallotments that Governor Pawlenty had made last year. And obviously in the area of tax increases, the legislature started out with $2 billion in tax increase. They went to a bill of $1.5 billion in the previous session, and then it was a $1 billion tax increase. This year, when it came to $420 million tax increase, there were barely enough Democrats voting for the bill in order to pass it. One vote in the Senate, and I think about 3 or 4 vote margin in the House. It's amazing how legislators all of a sudden get more conservative as they get closer and closer to the election.